This is a dirt bike ride from April 22. A friend of mine from work, Taylor Ashworth, and I rode up in Taylor's truck there to meet Mike and Sean Eason at their campground in Spangler Hills and then took off for a day of riding. That's Mike in front of me. We went over towards the hill climb area and it was a super windy day. You can see the dust is blowing off the trail, which is really quite nice. I managed to get stuck at the bottom of this hill. See, I turned the corner too early and just did not commit. Also, nasty rut there at the bottom, super deep, hard hit and power out. We got to the top and Taylor didn't show up. Went back around and he got stuck in that ravine down there. He had rented this bike. He had all his motocross gear out in the LA area, but found that DRZ in the in LA, rented it, picked it up, and went dirt bike riding with it. So that was pretty good. So it's Mike, Sean, and then Taylor in front of me there. This is a super fun area. Lots of hills. It's along the 395 highway, just east of 395, well south of Ridgecrest, California. We just messed around on these hills quite a bit and practiced some hill climbs. Still not one of my fortes, but always fun. Some sand washes, some single track. Out in the distance there, you can see that sandstorm. That is Trona, California. It's like a salt flat, and the wind was blowing hard enough it picked up all that mineral dust and put it in the air. You can see it there again, probably 10 miles out maybe. It was really nice not to have the dust. The wind doesn't really bother you at these slow speeds. It's not like driving on the highway. You can see the clarity and the visibility is probably 100 miles this morning. Some really sweet views and just had a really good time. We made our way down some of these steep hills, and Sean in front of me dragging his brake. It doesn't really look so steep on the camera, but it's quite steep. Taylor had a DRZ Supermoto model, and it did just fine climbing these hills. And Mike's and Sean and my bike are hopped up a little bit, but that bike he rented from a guy just off a website did great. That's Sean in front of me. You can see the hill climbs all over these, basically like big sand dunes. You can see the Joshua trees occasionally there on the right. Those grow around 3,000 feet elevation. They're really cool. This is the nice little single track. You can see Taylor in front of me there. Some whoops up and down. Just a lot of fun riding through that. Taylor is a friend from South Carolina from work, and he has some experience motocross riding. So he had all his gear with him, but not his bike. He's working in LA for a couple of years. Now we're going to go on a pretty steep downhill. You can see Taylor pausing to go over the edge there. It really is a little bit intimidating. I dumped my bike in the sand one time, turning around to look up at the hill at him, and just totally fell over at 0 speed, which was quite comical. There you see a steep hill, some tail dragging. Too much front brake and you have a pretty big problem, so better to drag it. Basically just chased each other around the desert. We ended up driving for, I think it was 30 or 35 miles maybe. And started making our way back to the camp area. We were going to head back, and Mike and Sean were going to ride with their family. And as we got closer across these, this is an old mining area, I think. As we got closer on one of these next hills, this one, you see Taylor go down right there. He hit a rock, then he just hit a second rock and got up, shook it off, and didn't think he was hurt too bad. We ended up going back to the camp. Taylor and I were going to do some additional riding here once we got past the railroad tracks here. But it turned out he had hit a rock, his knee hit a rock and gouged it, gashed it pretty badly. So we ended up not going on the second ride. And here Mike and Taylor swap bikes so Taylor could check out the hopped up DRZ. And Taylor ended up needing 8 stitches. I had to take him down to Ridgecrest and they had to sew him up. It was a pretty good gash, so pretty good. He toughed it out and got back to the truck, but otherwise a great day and a lot of fun riding.